Alrighty, what's up everyone? Welcome back. I'm Jonathan. This is Duke Does Amazon. I don't know if it's going to be a common theme, but as long as he's by me, I got to give a shout out to the Duke man. We got Marv and Jack. I'm working on that point thing. I wasn't kidding. In a previous video, I just mentioned how I'm a zookeeper who happens to do some other things. That's facts, okay? I love these guys though. So anyway, today's video, I want to talk about the 4 most common ways that people source to find things to sell on Amazon. Just so we're clear, sourcing is just a way of saying, how do I go about getting the goods that I'm gonna be selling on Amazon? And Amazon is pretty much, selling on Amazon is basically broken down into 2 sections in a very, very simple way of putting it. You have your sourcing of the goods and you have your selling of the goods, or fulfillment. How do you get the product to the customer, right? From listing it until they reach it. So yesterday I did a video. I'll put that in the link below, but it's basically me explaining the 2 fulfillment channels that Amazon offers. You have FBA, Fulfillment by Amazon, and you have FBM, Fulfillment by Merchant. Okay, so that's one half of the equation that we're not gonna focus on today. I just did a video about that, but just know there's 2 options and we dive into those. Today I want to focus on the other half, the sourcing part of it and how most people do it. So I remember being a new seller on Amazon, or just in the early stages of doing research, and I was overwhelmed with all this information online. Okay, there's all these different ways that you can sell on Amazon and source, and that's true. But for who I'm talking to, I think the beginner, I think anybody that just wants to scratch the surface and learn if this is for them, retail arbitrage to me is hands down by far the best way to get started for a variety of reasons. I'm gonna focus on that. That's the majority of my personal business. With time, as you do that, naturally you'll expand a little bit and find other ways to source goods. I'll touch upon those, but again, if I had to tell my friend today or tomorrow, what is the simplest way for you to get started, I would say only focus on retail arbitrage. And so we're gonna dive into that today, along with some other ways to do it, the pros and cons, and kind of conclude everything. So anyway, let's hop into it, okay? Alrighty, so let's start with retail arbitrage. First things first, what is retail arbitrage? It's really a fancy way of saying buying goods at a brick and mortar retail store and selling them somewhere else for profit. Now, clearly this channel is focused on selling solely on Amazon, so to put it in direct terms, I buy a product at a physical brick and mortar retail store, a tangible good, and then I sell it on Amazon with the goal being to make profit, of course, okay? So let's dive into that, give a real life example. I go to Walmart right now, a physical brick and mortar Walmart, I buy a product, I come home and I list it on Amazon, or I prep it to ship it to Amazon to be listed on Amazon. Based on my research, the item is selling quickly and profitable. That's retail arbitrage in a very quick nutshell, okay? Why do I really like retail arbitrage? So one thing is that right off the bat, you could start right now in theory. You could leave your house. I could leave my home. I can be at a Walmart. I could start scanning and I can buy a product right away. So the instant nature of getting started means much fewer barrier to entries. You can take action, you could go today and you can get going, okay? So I love that instant nature of it. Also, you know, you're gonna be listed on Amazon much quicker because you don't have to wait for something to like be delivered to you, all right? So one thing is the instant nature of it. For 2, I think the ROI tends to be much better from my experience doing retail arbitrage. I think there's a variety of reasons why this is, and actually some I'm gonna touch upon in a second, but just know that if you have a limited budget and you really wanna get bang for your buck, I find that retail arbitrage can get you the most or the highest levels of ROI versus anything else I've done. And one of the main reasons for that is you're not competing with people on a global level with anything that you buy online. So some things are just super unique to your area or even that store. And because of that, there's such a limited supply or availability, especially to get it at a discounted price if you find it in clearance, that it makes it very unique to you, okay? So that's a huge thing. If you were just starting off with a limited budget, I would tell my friends, only do retail arbitrage. Make sure you get like 200% return on investment on all of your products if you have a super limited budget. And I believe that retail arbitrage is the only way to try to get that type of returns, okay? Now that's a great number. That's not for somebody that has a big budget or a long-term plan or sustainability. It's doable, but not on a macro scale to get those type of returns. But especially if you have a limited budget, it absolutely is, all right? Another thing, and I kind of talked about this, when you're doing retail arbitrage, there are deals that are very specific to just that store, okay? So using Walmart as an example, I could go to Walmart A and scan their clearance section, and there might be 100 items here that only exist at this price, at this very Walmart, Walmart A. I can go to Walmart B, 5 miles away, they're not there. Walmart C, 5 miles the other direction, not there. Any other Walmart in the country, not there. There are items specific to just this store, and because of that, you have huge leverage in the opportunity to, I shouldn't say you have huge leverage, you have a much greater opportunity to make a much better return, because it's not like you're competing with everybody shopping at Walmarts all throughout the country. These items are just specific to that store. And again, there's no other, anything online is always gonna have much more competition. So because of that, that nature of it is really attractive for RA as well. RA is retail arbitrage, okay? I do wanna mention on the downside, because everything has pros and cons. With retail arbitrage, typically there's limited quantities of what you could buy. So let's say you found something that could sell, you could sell 100 of them a month, hypothetically. And you were comfortable doing it because you've been doing this long enough, you understand the reads and the data, but there's only 3 of that item. So you're kind of, you know that you have a great item, but you're limited to those 3. Now again, you can go to other surrounding Walmarts, and that's exactly what I would tell people to do, especially beginning off when you're starting, and see if they have more. But that can be time consuming getting to that 100. So it's unrealistic that you'll ever get to the 100 unless you go online, but that means there's more competition and you might not get the price point you need to be at. So just limited quantities, keep that in mind. For retail arbitrage and strictly retail arbitrage, if you are only doing that, you're gonna be maxed out on your quantities, even if you hit several stores, okay? And then the other thing is that on one side, I just explained that retail arbitrage, certain clearance, or just regular items are specific to one store. Like using a Walmart, sometimes they have things on clearance that are on a national level. So you aren't just competing with Walmart A, you are competing with all Walmarts. And let's see you see the item there and you read it and you say, wow, this is gonna be a home run. Little do you know there's 1,000 other people like you shopping at a Walmart throughout the country right now, and by the time all of your inventory hits, everybody's inventory hits, the price is gonna go down because of simple supply and demand. So that's stuff you just kind of learn with time by reading data, if that's the case or not. But anyway, retail arbitrage, one of the cons there again is because you can be competing with all sellers throughout the country if there are nationwide clearance sales, okay? So nothing's perfect, but in a nutshell, again, retail arbitrage I think is so fantastic because you can start now, it's instant, you can have great return on investment. You learn a lot. This is where you like hone your skills, because now you're going to be scanning a ton and you can do a lot of scanning even if you don't buy, just like test buys mentally. You know, I can go to a store and scan 100 items in less than 30 minutes and mentally say, if I wanted to, I in theory bought this good, let me follow its progress. Did I make a good read, a bad read, etc.? It's just so easy and simple. It's just a simple concept. You don't need to sign up. You don't need to get permission. There's no seller account or anything like that, you know, on the store level. You just go and buy the good. All right? Whew. Retail arbitrage. Can't emphasize that enough for anybody starting off, and it's still the majority of my business 15, 16 months later. All right? Alrighty, so now it's time to talk about online arbitrage. Okay? And so once again, retail arbitrage, I would say only focus on that if you had one thing to focus on as a beginner. Online arbitrage will naturally come with time, okay? I've continued to add more and more and more online arbitrage to my arsenal as I find more and more and more retail arbitrage products that I want to buy more of, or that a light bulb moment, oh, this brand I can crush it with, I never even knew existed. Let me go to their site online and see what I can do, etc. So in a nutshell, online arbitrage is kind of like it sounds. Instead of going to a retail brick and mortar, like using Walmart as an example, now you're shopping at walmart.com, okay? Pros, much greater quantities, okay? So if you know an item and you're confident you can buy in a much, much larger fashion, and so you never have to leave your home or your office, the convenience factor is certainly there as well. The cons are that you're competing with sellers on the internet, which literally can be ordered from anywhere, okay? So naturally, and I was alluding to this with retail arbitrage, typically your ROI is never as high with online arbitrage as it is retail arbitrage, but once you have a bigger and bigger budget, you're not as concerned about making the same level of ROI. You're happy taking, let's say, 70% instead of 100, and you can spend a couple $1,000s and still make really good money doing it, okay? So as you progress, everyone that I know that started off with retail arbitrage naturally gets into online arbitrage. It's just a natural progression. Another downside though is that you are gonna wait for it to get delivered to you. So that's gonna take a couple days, then you have to process it and sell it. Sometimes an item is only profitable because of the essence of time. So that can come into play. But generally speaking, yeah, it's a great alternative. You're not gonna make as much on your return on investment, but the convenience factor is there. I like doing online arbitrage when I know specifically for the items I'm looking for or the brand, because I've had light bulb moments doing retail arbitrage as opposed to just blindly going online and having to do all this cross-checking and scanning. It's much quicker to scan in the stores, get a lot more SKUs, items checked out. And so for that reason, again, I say start with retail arbitrage, but that's the overview of online arbitrage, which I do as well. Alrighty, so the next two types of sourcing that I'm gonna mention, I'm just gonna go through them quickly. I certainly don't suggest it for anyone that's just starting out, and even now, I don't use either, okay? So one of them is wholesaling. Wholesaling is another form of online arbitrage. The reason I don't suggest this to beginners is because one, you have to open an account with them, you have to buy larger quantities, so you're committing before you really know the ins and outs and your data points, stuff like that. And even further than online arbitrage, I find typically that the return on investment is even lower. So again, if someone has a huge budget and they're not as concerned about the ROI, because there's a million ways to do this, it's really convenient. I'll give it that. You can buy a ton of things at once. And by the way, when I say a wholesaler, think of Mrs. Dash seasoning. Instead of me going from Walmart to Walmart to Walmart or even online, I could do a Google search, Mrs. Dash wholesale distributor, open an account with them, and now I'm buying 100 of lemon pepper at a time, right? And it might not be the best price in the world, it might not be the worst, but it's that convenience and the quantity, right? So if you find some really good items and you're constantly reselling them, that might be for you. But for beginners, I would say know what it is, don't focus on that, maybe dabble with that down the road, okay? That's what I would tell a friend. I'm sure a lot of people are crushing it with wholesale, especially experienced sellers. I'm talking more to the beginners. I want there to be as few barrier to entries, not as much headache, do retail arbitrage. Last but not least, was something that I would never suggest to somebody starting off, is private label. You might have heard this. This is where you are creating your own product. So you have to find a manufacturer, typically overseas. You have to create a brand. You have to make sure the product is built correctly and properly. And now you have to build awareness as well. So all of these reasons, oh, and your quantity buy is gonna be by the thousands typically. You have to open a product on Amazon. So it's just a lot of headache, it's higher risk, it's higher startup cost. Start with retail arbitrage. I keep going back to that. You can always grow into all of these, but you have to start somewhere. And I know that when you get overwhelmed with so much data and information, it's paralysis by analysis. You just never start. It's like, you have to just start somewhere, and if you were to start in one place, I would say to any of my friends and family, retail arbitrage, retail arbitrage, retail arbitrage. Prove that you're committed, prove that to yourself that you're understanding the data and how to read charts and all of these little nuances. And then from there, grow into online arbitrage. And if you really want to, wholesale and private label one day. But you have to be able to crawl before you can walk. And crawling instantly and easily accessibly is retail arbitrage. You can start it literally right now. So for all of those reasons, that's why I keep pushing retail arbitrage to beginners. And and that was a little bit else about what retail arbitrage is. The other ways, there are some other ways that people source as well, but those are the 4 most common. And so if you hear those and you're like, what is that? This can at least get you by on like a Cliff Notes version. So anyway, thank you guys for being here. Once again, I'm Jonathan, Duke Does Amazon. If you have any questions or comments about this, put them below and I will see you next time. All right, take care.